I'm Karen Stack from Lick the Bowl. Welcome to Cake TV, brought to you by Renshaw. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to cover a square cake using the panel method so you get those nice sharp edges every time. Okay, so today we're going to be covering this ganache cake in fondant. So my first step is going to be painting the top of the square in some sugar glue so that the fondant's got something to stick to. I'm using the sugar glue by Rainbow Dust. I'm just going to paint it on top of the cake. Don't want to get any on the sides. So I haven't used too much, just a nice even coverage. Now I can roll out some fondant. So I'm just using some white Renshaw fondant today. Doesn't need much of a knead because it's beautiful and soft. Just put a little bit of corn flour down on my bench. That's just going to stop the fondant from sticking. Now my next step is to cover the cake, and I'm just going to be covering the top. So I just need to roll out enough fondant that's going to give me enough coverage just for the top of the cake. So I've rolled out enough fondant to cover the top of my cake. I've used a cake smoother just to give it a quick buff before I put it on my cake. And if there's any air bubbles in there, you can get them out with either an acupuncture needle or just give it a smooth with your cake smoother. I'm just going to pick it up and just place it on top of the cake. I'm going to use my cake smoother again, just to smooth the fondant so it adheres nicely to the top of the cake. I don't want to drag my cake smoother down and do a rounded motion on the side of the cake because the aim is to keep everything nice and square. Now I need to remove the excess from the sides. So I'm going to show you my technique of making that so that it's nice and straight and it gives your cake a nice sharp clean edge. I've got an acrylic lid here that I'm going to use. I'm going to put it on top of the cake and I'm going to use my acetate smoother for the side to push it up this way and use this as a cutting tool to cut the excess off the side of the fondant. The great thing about using this clear acrylic board is that I can see exactly what I'm doing underneath the cake as I'm cutting the excess fondant off. Okay, so now I've removed all the excess fondant from around the side of the cake and I'm gently going to release the lid so as not to disturb the fondant. Perfect! I'm going to use my cake smoother just to give it a tiny bit of a smooth on the top. I don't want to push towards the sides because what will happen then is I'll destroy that really nice clean sharp edge that I've got. What I'll do with my cake smoother is in a downward motion is just go like this on the side of my cake just to make sure that that fondant is nice and straight down the side. So now we have a piece of fondant that's perfectly the same size as the top of our cake, ready to do the sides. Okay, so the top of my cake is covered in fondant and I've left it sit for a couple of hours just so that the top is nice and firm. So now I'm going to be putting some panels on the side of the cake, starting with this one first. So I'm just going to go and put a little bit of the sugar glue on the front of the cake. Just be careful when you're putting the glue on because you don't want to put glue on top of the cake. So I've got some Renshaw fondant rolled out here on the bench and I know that it's big enough to cover this whole front panel in one piece. I'm just going to put a straight line across the bottom here and I'm just going to pick up the panel and pop it straight on top. I'm just going to use my cake smoother to make sure that the fondant has adhered to the cake, but I don't want to go over in a rounded motion to create any rounded edges on the side of my cake. Now I need to remove the excess from the sides. To do that, I'm going to use a sharp blade. I'm just going to start from the top and cut my way straight down to the bottom. So I've put the first panel on. I need to do the opposite panel on this side in exactly the same way. So now I just need to cut the top edge off the fondant, and this is why the fondant needs to be nice and dry on top so that I'm not going to damage or dent the fondant with my knife. So it also lets me put a little bit of pressure on top of the cake so I don't damage it, so I get that nice, sharp, clean, crisp edge. Okay, so now I've put those two side panels on. It's time to do the front and then the back, and then we're done. so it's also really important too that when you're cutting the top off to keep your blade nice and straight with the top of the cake so that you get that really nice, clean, sharp edge. If you hold the knife down like this, you'll get a beveled edge along the side, but if you hold this knife straight onto the cake and slice straight across, everything will be nice and straight. So I'm just finishing off my last panel on the back. And there you have it, a perfectly panelled square cake. I'm Karen Stack from Lick the Bowl. Thanks so much for joining me today on Cake TV, brought to you by Renshaw. Please pick up the panel and pop it on top. Okay, I'm Karen Stack from Lick the Bowl. Thanks for joining me on Cake TV, brought to you by Renshaw. And that's it? Yep. I know. I know. Oh, you did say that.